I'm curious to hear from you all. How have things been going?
It's going. It's going. Uh, uh, Related to the previous topic we had about our Microsoft credentials that we have to put into a lab. I had the same task, and it was saying like you can put like your credentials or make a new one. That's what it says over there.
Did you make a new one?
Yeah, yeah, I did. I did make the new one. I don't know if it's like banned now or not. It was the lab 12 slash 3.
Okay. Yeah, that was it was it was a huge problem at first. A lot of people were a little frustrated with that lab.
I mean, you can make a new, right? It's not like too hard, but like that's weird that it like offers you to put your credentials, like existing credentials that you have to the lab.
Right. Yeah, that was the weird part. You know what? I'm curious to see if in the let me see if I have that particular lab. We said it was lab 12, huh? But it was probably under module 13.
12,
So
12 slash 3.
okay. So I have, let me just see if I can actually, that one's wrong. Okay, so here I'm gonna see if this is I think it's the lab that said 12.3. Perform a clean installation of Windows 10, which starts on page 11. Let me
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
mention
When you
that's
install the new Windows, like in order to like get into the system, new system, you have to like put them.
uh, so wow, estimated time an hour. Did that seem about right? It was that long?
I mean, yeah, some labs are, I mean, you can do them faster. It's only estimated, right? But like you have to install the actual Windows and if you're like not familiar with the Windows installing at all, yeah, it can take an hour.
Wow. Okay. Um, and so they don't add anything about the preparation about having certain credentials. I guess that's when after you perform the install, you have to log in to see if it works. Um, Let me see here. So do you guys have to do all of this, okay? And install, have a product key. Um, you might consider performing this once in a VM and once in the computer. Follow the steps there, and then
Yeah, those credentials are required for you to continue the install. Like you can't even wrap up the lesson to move to logging onto the machine without doing it there.
wow, okay. This lab is it's very authentic, right? It's like you're really doing it, aren't you? It's not just like I mean, it yeah, this seems I didn't see anywhere in here where except the oh, okay, so follow instructions here on. on the account screen, you need to sign in to an existing Microsoft account or create a new one. Hmm. Yeah, you know what? Maybe we should have had some kind of test account set up that everybody could just enter a username and a dummy password or something. If you're creating a new account, enter a user account name, password, and answer the security questions. What are the user account name, password to them? I don't know why they're giving us this. I don't think this would work, but it's just a random example of solution.
That one doesn't work. You have to put your own, and it's not the school one. You have to create like a personal one.
Mm, okay. Yeah, I do apologize for that. And I, one thing I suggested, um, because that is a major loophole, um, was to skip it. I think this is the only time where something like this actually comes up. Um, but now if it does come up again, I mean, maybe then at least we'll have a dummy account that we can use that's not our own. But what a hassle to have to create a new one. Yeah, I was really caught off guard there. Um, it seems like the actual lab was valuable though. Um, I think it's good to just get the experience of doing something like this, but it's just at the expense of personal information, which doesn't make sense at all. That was just so weird. Um, maybe what I could do is create an account and then maybe just give you guys the username and password. I don't know if that would work for everybody, especially if you log in at the same time. But I'm thinking
I mean, it's
that,
not too hard to create the new because like you can do it from the lab inside. It's not like that hard, but like just like if you can like change it somehow so it would not to ask you to like use your personal one and just like ask you to create the new one, it will be much more like clear.
okay. Yeah, and that was the problem where a lot of people struggled. Um, they didn't, I guess they didn't really think about creating a new one, or they didn't feel like it was necessary. And so they tried to use their own, but then they thought, I don't trust it. What are they going to do? Maybe the password is not encrypted. Like what's why? But if you already have something or if you're wanting to create a new one, I think you're going to be okay there. Okay. I guess I should have just, yeah. In this lab, you created a new Microsoft account or signed into an existing account to sign into Windows. Is it necessary to be connected to the internet to create the account? Well, yeah. Um, why do you need access to BIOS on a computer or BIOS settings on a VM? Mhm. This is a really good document. I'm going to drop this into the files section and hopefully they'll let me do that. I know we do have a lot of things already, but will it let me drop it in there without being zipped? All right, I exceed the storage limit there. What I will do though is drop in I can at least drop in the 12, the one I was just showing you. Um, and where did it go? Oh yeah, here it is. I could drop this in and maybe a few others as well. Um, like today we're focused on 14 and 15, I believe. So what I will do, because I know these labs are probably the most intense, I'm going to drop in 14 and 15, um, just as guidance to kind of help you navigate through there, just for an extra set of instructions. Um, and if you have any other questions on others, I have them all, but I don't have the space to do it. But if there was a particular lab where you'd be interested in looking at the um, student solution manual, you could just message me or let me know during lecture, and I can drop it in just as a resource. And I'll put solutions manuals. Uh, and then it's just a matter of moving. I guess um, I'd be able to just, well, at this point, I just move it to here. Same thing with this one. Okay. Um, Now, this is one of the biggest weeks for us. And let me just point out what makes, why did I just say that? If you go into the weekly calendar and we're at the start of week 4, it actually has two modules combined. They're really short, but when they're combined together, it's probably going to be one of the longer ones. So this is a hard working week for us. After week 4, though, everything kind of tapers off and it's not so bad. Like, week 7 is going to be a breeze. Week 9, there's a lot there. And then we jump into module 20 and 21. But we had to cover both this time, and they were pretty small alone. And again, don't feel rushed. You guys are off to a great pace. It'll be hard for us to kind of cover both of these together, but I am going to just try to go through the slides pretty quickly just to touch on some of the key concepts. We could also jump into the text as well. Um, I do have, well, yeah, we all have the text. Um, and there's a lot of different texts too that I believe I put as resources. So let me make sure. I don't know if you guys are able to get some of those other resources, but if you go into files and you go to ebooks, there's 3 different ones. I know someone said that they were outdated, um, but I actually think that these are these are still relevant to the current A plus exam that's out right now. You could correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure these are still pretty much legit. And the third one, I believe, is the one that corresponds to our book, the Nicholas Pierce. Yeah, this one. All right. Um, so I like how it says describe how Windows works. So we're actually looking at the register, right? There's this register that has this hierarchy. And when things are broken, that's where you really go to fix stuff. Like, but also inside the register, it you can screw things up if you're not careful. So you really got to know what you're doing before you make any kind of changes there. It could be it could be something you change in there and nobody's going to be able to even find or locate what you did and how you did it. And it could be a huge problem. So in 14 they do talk about that. And the register is kind of we'll look at the structure and where it holds the data for the users and the systems and stuff like that. Also, identifying the Windows tools used to solve problems. And we're going to see the kind of problems that pop up, whether the computer's running really slow or, it's not organized properly. There's all sorts of issues that may arise. And then best practices. Um, yeah, I like this. When we talk about Linux, because the Linux computer is more closer to a very basic, minimal computer design. So when we talk about the Linux machine, you're going to hear a lot about the shell, a lot about the kernel. And Windows, I mean, it just has so many layers, and the operating system is just so gigantic that we'd never really see the abstract side of a Windows machine. We take for granted the inner workings of the operating system and the organization of it because the way Windows presents itself to the user. But because we're studying operating systems right now and the layout of them, it's important for us to understand these concepts, and they are abstract. It's really hard to put your finger on it or to grasp it. It's not that tangible when you think about it. It has some abstractness to it. So a shell is considered to be the portion of the OS that relates to the user and to the application. Here, the Windows shell provides tools such as the File Explorer, the Windows desktop, which can be thought of as a window itself, even the File Explorer. Now, I'm assuming most of you guys are on Windows 11 like myself. One thing I noticed when I start clicking on the File Explorer, I realized that it almost looks like the way they set up the File Explorer, it feels so different than Windows 10. Like here's the File Explorer, and it's like, I mean, it almost feels like an entire program, you know? And like it almost looks like like an internet browser almost. Um, but the File Explorer makes up, it's an example of what the shell provides to the user. And now there's this other concept called the kernel. And the kernel is responsible for interacting with the hardware. So between the shell and the kernel, you know, you have yourself, you know, the the full kind of experience. And now the kernel is divided into two main components, as they say. Let's keep going. Um, the abstraction layer, which we call it the hardware abstraction layer, and then the executive services. And so here's um, a diagram that kind of shows the inside of the operating system, the different components, how they relate to each other. As you can see, though, the operating system has its three disjointed sets: the shell, the kernel, and then something called the configuration data. And I was talking about earlier the registry. The registry is makes up a component of that, as well as configuration files. Now, we all know that the Windows operating system is proprietary. We don't have full access or full control of the system. We can't take the system, rewrite it, modify it, and redistribute it as our own. It stays in contact, and I don't even think that they even give administrators the ability, um, the admin user account, the ability to do such. If you do happen to fiddle around with it, I think it's actually could be illegal. And so you don't even want to mess around with it. This is not that type of system. There are many systems that are modifiable, that they do let you change around anything you want, redistribute it, and all of that. Customize, copy, whatever you want to do. There are tons of systems out there like that. The number one system that allows that is a Linux system. Any one of those flavors, you can do that. Um, and here you can see kind of how we have the software inside and then the hardware, which is actually the hardware is not a part of the operating system, but it is the job of the operating system to control the hardware. Um, this is pretty good though. This is a pretty good layout. Um, there's something called the directory structure. So the user profile namespace. When a user first signs into Windows, a user profile is created and consists of two general items: a user folder and its subfolders. There's also a hidden file stored in the users that contains user data. That's interesting. Um, let me see if I can pull up, and I'm gonna go into a terminal, and as you can see, I'm in my own. So I just opened up the PowerShell at the administrator one as the administrator, and they put me right. My directory is my username directory. Let me see. Does it do P? If I do pwd, all right, which basically stands for the path of the working directory. It gives me the full complete path. But we already knew that because it's a part of the prompt. But if I do list, will it list out all of the documents and directories within my username? Let's see. There's a lot, way too many. So what if I were to list out all of them, including the hidden files? Actually, the hidden files are here already. As you can see, the dot, when a file name has a dot in the beginning of it, that is considered to be a hidden file. And I'm going to hit it anyway. Let's see. Okay, yeah, it didn't accept that, but ls did it anyway. And let's just see if I'm able to see that folder that they suggested was in there. It's called net user.dat. I actually don't see it, but it doesn't mean it's not there. But if I do ls with a help, oh, here we go. This showed it, and I actually have several different net user.files. files. And now the question is, can we see inside of it? What kind of data have they been collecting on me? All right, they're not going to allow me to see inside of it, partly because it's in use right now and it's probably recorded all my keystrokes. Um, there's also something called the program files, and these are where the program files are stored. The programs for the defaulted programs, and also when you download programs onto your machine, it usually will install it, or you'll have a choice, but by default, it's going to install it somewhere in here. Folders for Windows data, though. So the Windows data is going to be separate from your own data. And so the Windows uses a database called registry to store hardware and software configuration information, user preferences, and application settings. Windows also keeps some data in text files called initialization files. Important folder locations used for the registry and other Windows are these. Also, what is a process? All right, a process is a program that is running under the authority of the shell, together with the system resources assigned to it. Okay, so you may hear about killing a process. That's actually a term. The operating system is running right now, and in order for the operating system to run, it's a bunch of processes running simultaneously. And these processes are programs. They're all running in harmony, in unison. And so the processes um, are triggered. There's like this mathematical way on how all the different processes run. And it's like they form a line. And It's like you're about to get on a roller coaster ride. You have to get in line and you wait and wait and wait until it's your turn. And then you strap in, it's your turn, and the operator pushes a button and sends you on your way. Like a lot of those processes are running like that. Um, if I were to, let's see, right click on the start menu and go to the task manager, uh, you can see the number of processes running in the background right now. It was 80. It went up to 81, but now it's down to 80 again. That's a lot of processes. And then we have Windows processes that are running. So every time I turn on the computer, these Windows processes, they get busy. And there's 107 of them in total. And they just do various things. They keep the operating system ready and able. Um, you can see all kinds of things in here. So yeah, we have that. Hmm. All right, let's get busy now. We're I feel like we're moving a little slow, and you guys are probably all over this already. But this is good. I like spending time with the basics because once we like internalize and process the basic information, we're able to move a lot faster. And sometimes you hear about these terms like, why does my processor have 24 threads or 12 threads? Or I have 12 cores. Why does the number of cores that I have is two times the number of threads that I have? Right? These are questions that you might be wondering. And we talked about that once before as well. I'll just show you really quickly. When you right click on the Windows button, you can go to systems really quickly. This is the only way I know where to find it, besides searching for it. But they do talk about the amount of threads that you have. Actually, th- my machine that doesn't say it right here, but we all know I have only 12 cores, and that makes 24 threads, which is pretty good. Um, When a process makes a request for resources to the Win32 subsystem, the request is known as a thread. A thread is a single task, such as printing a file that the process requests from the kernel. Sometimes a process is called an instance. A process with more than one thread is called multi-threading. All right. Uh, you have a difficult you are having difficulty uninstalling freeware a user accidentally installed while surfing the web. You look online and see that the software is designed to work in an x86 based version of Windows. And which folder should you expect to find the program files for the software? It's kind of a trick question. Um, it's going to be D, which is depends on the version of Windows installed. They never told us what version of Windows installs. They only talked about the software is designed for this type of architect, but it depends on the version of Windows that we actually have. An x86 based app is a 32-bit app. If Windows is 32-bit, the app is installed in the program files folder. If Windows is 64-bit, the app is installed in the C program files x86 folder. Survey for Windows tools and techniques. Use Event Viewer to look for clues. Sometimes you gotta not like there's a saying, you need the right tool for the right job. But you need to know what tool you're going to use based on the issue. And so sometimes you got to look through logs to determine, all right, what kind of tool do I actually need? Here's something that we were looking at earlier. Um, the resource monitor. This shows how the computer resources are being allocated. All pretty straightforward. Performance monitor. Okay. The task manager shows what's happening now. Um, you could check out some of these processes. Sometimes this works in terms of ending a certain program. So you're like killing the process when you hit end task. Like if you're on a browser and you just have like a white screen and nothing's showing and it's not responding to your clicks or you're trying to exit it out. What you could do is go into the task manager, hit find where it is, because everything running will be up in this section. And you just hit end task and that whole thing just is gone. They talk about the task manager, what's in there. It's something you should all be very familiar to. I like this part. When you go into startup, you can disable apps from starting automatically. Like whenever you do updates, sometimes by default, they will put Microsoft Teams to start when you start your computer. Why in the world would someone want to start Microsoft Teams? And not only that, Microsoft Teams is a huge impact. It could slow. I'm sure some of you guys have experience in this. It could really change your whole experience in using your machine when you first cut it on. You want your machine to start right away. Um, if your machine is starting a lot of high impact programs, your machine is going to take a long time before it's ready to be used. Um, like for me, I do monitor mines quite a bit. I don't know if I've gone in since, well, I did when I upgraded to Windows 11, I did go inside my task manager. But if I click on startup apps, everything is disabled unless it's very low startup impact. Oh, I have Copilot started. I don't know why Copilot needed to be started. I'm going to disable that. Although I have been using Copilot a lot more. Mobile devices? Why would I have mobile devices on? That makes no sense. Um, I just have a few things that are enabled. Everything else, like I want to start it myself. I I don't need it to start right away. Yeah, so that could speed up your machine right there just by monitoring your startup apps. Were you guys familiar with that functionality at all? Have you ever gone into the task manager for anything?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have services console managed services here. This is what we call the command prompt system configuration. So you can actually configure a lot of the files and enabling certain things. Um, safe mode, system restore. Let's get through all of this. Okay, so here's the registry, and we don't this class we don't focus a lot on it, but you just have to be aware of where it is, what does it look like, and how it's structured. Um, so the registry editor is used to manually change the Windows registry. Items in the registry are called keys, which are assigned values. So the registry is organized. Um, the registry is a database designed with tree-like structure, hierarchical. It contains configuration info for Windows users and software applications and installed hardware devices. 5 files used to build the registry are called hives. All right. So it's the SAM, security account manager, security, software system, and then default hives. Um, After the registry is built, it is then organized into 5 high-level keys. Here are the 5 keys. Um, and between all of them, they cover, you know, the kernel, all of that stuff. Um, the other the other piece, the operating system and all of that jazz. Let's keep going. Oh yeah, they're warning you that before you edit the registry, back it up. Ways to back up the registry include the following. Use system protection to create a restore point. Back up a single registry key just before editing it. Make an extra copy. Back up, edit, and restore individual keys. Um, and it's laid out like this. Using the registry editor, you can back up a key and its subkeys with the export command. I like this. This should be a poster. Steps to solve any computer problem. Identify, establish your theory, test it, fix it, verify it's been fixed, and then implement preventative measures and document your findings. Sometimes services do not start. Um, you might want to first, in the theory of the following steps, you want to identify the problem. And so sometimes you have to try different things. And one of the things to try would be the task manager. Time drift, we have This happens, the battery can be worn out, it could be getting old. Um, Sometimes the time isn't synced to the internet. Low memory warning, I've had this happen to me. Sluggish performance. How do you fix that, right? Verify Windows updates and antivirus settings, uninstall applications, you name it. Verify requirements for the OS and applications. Search for unnecessary startup programs you can eliminate. Disable or uninstall startup items. Search for unwanted scheduled tasks using Task Scheduler. Here are general steps you can follow to observe the system and solve a problem. Okay, there it is. All of this, tons of stuff, and application errors. Here's the final knowledge check before the end of the slides, and then we could kind of go over the others real quick too before we call it good. But um, when trying to improve performance of a slow system, you notice in the task manager that the superfetch service is using a high percentage of CPU time. What is your best next step? I think the key too is first understanding what superfetch is or does. Um, is it really essential to Windows process and should not be disabled? If you're in the task manager, you will see where it's located because the Windows processes that are essential are under the Windows Essential program. Would Superfetch actually be there? I mean, even by the name alone, though, right? That doesn't even sound like a Windows program. Should we update the Windows to improve Superfetch performance? Would that even work? Why do we think that that would work? Um, Ask the user if they use the Superfetch service. If they don't, uninstall it. That seems like a decent way of doing it, but to uninstall it seems a bit extreme. The correct answer would be A, just disable it. This Windows service cannot be uninstalled. It is supposed to improve performance, but can actually degrade performance on some systems. If it is hogging CPU time, it should be disabled. This question includes information not in the module and is designed to help you learn to use the web to research a problem. A good search string would be, what is Windows Superfetch? Now, nowadays, they should say a good command prompt, because we use prompts now to search for things in AI. Here's the summary of that lesson. Describe how Windows works, the structure, and where it holds the data. Identify Windows tools used to solve problems, and apply recommended best practices to troubleshoot Windows problems. Okay. Any questions on that at all? Um, So that's the first part, which I told you they were kind of small. It wasn't that much. This one has about 40 slides, even less than the other one. Actually, the other one had 44 slides. This one has 43. So, okay. It's less by one slide. We would not be able to get through it all, but we could at least start the very beginning to get the basics processed in. And then I would encourage you to go to the Module 15 and this textbook, the 11th edition of the CompTIA A Plus. I gave the PDF of this book in the file section. You also have access to this book in Cengage. Also, when you go into Cengage, you should work on doing the flashcards, the practice problems, do all those resources. Spend time on that. It's going to strengthen your vocabulary, and that can translate into a higher score when it's time for you to take an actual exam or something. I'll just keep it like this. Let's see if I can make it bigger. I'll just do full screen mode. There we go. So it starts off right away, right, in the term booting. And that refers to the computer bringing itself up to a working state. And it automatically boots the operating system. So booting is the process of the machine starting the OS. Two fundamental ways to boot the computer include a hard boot, code boot, involves turning on the power with the on-off switch. Takes more time than a soft boot because it requires the initial steps performed by BIOS. A soft boot involves using the OS to reboot. In Windows, a soft boot is called a restart. Another thing, here's how the power button works. The power button in front can be configured as soft power button causing a restart. The reset button initializes the CPU, so it restarts at the beginning of the BIOS startup. The switch on the rear of the case turns off the power abruptly and is a hard power button. When Windows hangs, and that means it just stops working or freezes, try a restart. If that doesn't work, try a shutdown and then power the system back up. And if that doesn't work, press the reset button on the front of the case. Um, Now, yeah, this is interesting. They talked about how the power button can be used to restart a system. But it's been in my experience that when you first push that button, it doesn't restart it. It, I mean, I know, well, maybe it does actually, now that I think about it. For me to restart, I just like to manually push the restart button and let the system restart it. I don't like to push the button because it is possible to where you might push that button for too long. I do know that usually the rule of thumb is if you hold the power button in the case for 3 seconds, it will actually just shut down the machine. And even if there were programs or processes running that don't even have time to fully kill themselves, it's just going to shut down regardless. And that, I think that can actually mess some things up. Nowadays, though, the machines are pretty robust and they're designed to handle those commands. But still, to me, it's a little taboo. Um, I just wouldn't treat my computer like that. So here's something. Um, I like this. This is cool. Like this could be like a poster as well. Did error occur? Yes or no? Um, if it's no, then you have to decide what to do here. And then after that, you got this. And then it just goes through everything about the steps to boot the computer and start Windows. There's a lot that goes on. I know when you boot and you hold down the shift button, it will pull up a certain menu that enables you to um, modify some operating system commands. But that's not what this is talking about, though. Let's look at some more. So the steps to complete loading Windows, the kernel has to do its thing. Yep, this is the menu. This is the troubleshooting menu that gets you. You can get to this menu by rebooting and holding shift. I don't know if they said that though. Yeah, nowhere does it say it. Yes, in the book they talk about it. All right, let's take a look at these and then we'll probably start to wrap it up a little bit. But what to do before a problem occurs? So good, just good practices, right? Back it up, turn on system restore, create a system image, configures Windows to use the FA key as startup, and then create a recovery boot media. And here it is summarized. All right, so what we'll do is take a look at this. As a computer starts up, you see an error message about the hell. At what point in startup does this error occur? When BIOS is searching for an operating system, when Windows attempts to load the user profile, when Windows attempts to launch critical devices, or when Windows attempts to launch the kernel. And remember the how when Windows attempts to launch critical device drivers, the hardware abstraction layer is responsible for interacting with the device drivers. The kernel loads and activates the HAL before it launches device drivers. All right. All right, I think this is a good place to stop. Um, Spend some time on this is what I would recommend. And um, make sure that your processing the information. So as you do the labs, just kind of take your time, double check your answers and check out the manuals that I put into the files as well. All those things should be able to assist you in getting through it. You just got to pound the pavement this week, nail this week, and we are going to be smooth sailing in the following weeks. I think the load will progressively get easier and easier. Up until the 7th week, we saw it was pretty light.